Well, good evening once again. And for a team that has won back-to-back league titles, you would have thought that the management would have done more than enough to stay at the club. But as we all do know, it's not the situation at Kumasi Asante Kotoko as we speak. The club has won back-to-back titles, all right. But the lads are the men who made it possible for that to happen no more at the affairs of the club for reasons that a lot of us do know. But why exactly is this case, very, very conversant with a club like Kumasi Asante Kotoko? Almost every time a new board comes in with a lot of pomp, with a lot of pageantry, and almost every time they exit in a very sad and very bad manner for reasons a lot of us can comprehend. This evening on the show, we are going to be focusing on Kumasi Asante Kotoko as a club and why these things has been happening. And of course, we're going to be looking at the way forward. Jerry Efriye Pemka is the editor of the Kumasi Asante Kotoko Express, and he is my guest on the show. Jerry, good to see you.
Thank you, Kwame.
It's been a while we met, and I'm sure you've been very busy with the paper. But Jerry, obviously for someone who writes for the paper, I don't know how difficult is it for you sometimes to put some of these stories in the papers for us to read?
It is very, very difficult, I have to tell you, because as the official mouthpiece of the club, we can't speculate. We are not allowed to speculate. We must always come out from a position of fact and accuracy. And so sometimes when there is this information vacuum, okay, then it is very difficult for us. We also do hear some of the speculations, but putting it out there is difficult for us unless we have it confirmed, So it's quite difficult in situations like that. But, as you said, we've been through this over and over and over again, so we know how to handle issues.
Yeah, and I'm sure for you as the editor, maybe on a daily basis, you receive a lot of calls as to why you put the story there and not the story, or why you put a story about personality A and not personality B. How, do you decide to do all this in the face of all these challenges that the club has been through all these years? You have been with the paper for a decade plus now.
It's a very delicate, thing to do. You're always trying to find a balance, on issues to report. Sometimes you find supporters, turning up against management. You have supporters against the technical team, but you need to balance it. So it's a very delicate thing to do, but thank God we have a very experienced team in there, and we are almost all the time able to do that delicate surgery that is required to make sure that, you don't step on any tools, and everybody is happy and keeps the paper going.
Okay, so now let's focus on the issues surrounding the club at the moment. I'm sure this program could go on for hours if you want to fish out all the information emanating from your quarters. But let's look at the antithesis of all those stories that have been making rounds on the local scene. It started with a team from the old board, as we speak, going to see Nana, and we thought it was going to be a normal routine. I mean, going to present a trophy to Dwomoh, and then before we knew it, it was one story after the other. Before the team went out to meet Nana, and then all these stories started coming out. You, as the editor, I'm sure you also have your eyes and your ears on the ground. What were you hearing before all these developments?
Before the team went to Manchester about 2 weeks ago on a Thursday, everything was pointing to, the fact that the club was going to continue to move from strength to strength, because we already knew
back-to-back league titles.
Yeah, we already knew back-to-back league titles, and the priority was going to be, beefing up the team and being able to retain the title and go all the way in Africa. That has been the plan, Dr. Keke Sapong's 5-year plan. In the third or fourth year, we should be able to qualify for the league stage of the Champions League, and there were plans to beef up the team, players from, outside Ghana. Everything was on course. I never saw it coming. If I should tell you that I knew by Friday things were going to change and so quickly, I never saw it coming.
What could have, led to that in the first place? Because though we were not in Kumasi, what we gathered was that when the team went to meet Nana, Nana inquired about other board members, because when this board was put together, there were about 12, 13 individuals. And Nana was not happy about the fact that of these 12 individuals, only about 4 or 5 or 6 maybe showed up. I'm sure Nana is well-versed in some of these things, and he would have known maybe that some of these individuals along the line decided not to continue. Some of these individuals along the line may have chosen to opt out for varied reasons. You think that Nana didn't know this and would have posed a question like that to Doctor?
With all due respect, I can't, know what Nana is thinking. But what I know is that along the way, some did resign. Some never actually turned up after the day they were inaugurated. They never attended any meeting. They decided to,
mind their business,
mind their business. And I don't know what information Nana has, but I think that the team has been going to Nana every now and then. And not all of them have always been present. So,
he would have been talking to Doctor and would know a lot of things happening.
I don't know what Nana was thinking. And what I also don't know is what, precipitated Dr. Sarpon's resignation. Because the man himself has not spoken. Nobody has seen his resignation letter. Everything else is speculation. Everything else is speculation. And, I don't want to go in. I don't want to go deep in there. But there's been several, allegations and stuff like that. And some of us who are so close to the club, we know some of them are, pure fabrication. Some are,
Well, you have 2 days in a week to come out and tell us whether they are fabrications or otherwise, Tuesdays and Fridays. So that, for example, if something happens on Wednesday and Thursday, we would have to wait till Friday to get a confirmation of what is exactly happening.
Exactly. We are not a daily, so obviously sometimes it's very difficult to predict what will happen on a Friday. And to even make matters worse, we produce the paper 48 hours before it actually comes out, which means that by the time the paper goes to bed, by the time the paper goes to bed and by the time the paper comes out, a lot of things, could have happened. That is how difficult it is for us. And the way things keep changing, I am sure, very soon, Otumfa will come out with a definite position on the issue so that some of these speculations here and there will be put to rest.
Let's still stay with, all that led to, and then we're going to be coming to the appointment of, a team and a few individuals to be steering the affairs of the club for the time being. After that meeting on Thursday, 24 hours later, the issues started coming to the fore. One moment it was about sponsors, one moment it was about monies that had found its way elsewhere, one moment it was about how the club was being run, one moment a few individuals were not happy with the way Doctor was running the affairs of the club. And the question I was asking myself is, for 3 years, when the club was not really doing well, to the last 2 years when the team has won back-to-back league titles, I'm not too sure what these people were expecting the management or the board to do differently from what they have already done.
Well, I think, it's an all too familiar script that we've seen over and over again. Anytime the club seem to be on the ascendancy, you always see people come up with all sorts of stories because they think that there are, some spoils up there that, some juicy spoils up there that some people are benefiting. But they always forget, where the club came from. You can cast your mind back when Doctor took over the club, where the club was. It's not easy, even though Kotoko is a sellable product, but it's not easy to make money because it's also a very big, expenditure. If you're managing Kotoko, you have huge expenditure on your hands. And so you need to create that revenue to support your expenditure. You understand?
Yes, I do.
So it is a fact that it is Dr. Sarpon who came, and rebranded the club and made the club so attractive, and for people to think that there are a lot of spoils in there, and to think that they can easily come in and make the club thick. But it's a much more complex issue, and anybody who is coming in will have to work very hard. Who will definitely have to have the modern management.
Not just anybody.
No, not just anybody. Especially from where Doctor has taken the club to. Okay,
the standards are so high now.
The standards are so high. So if you are coming in, you have to make sure that you have the requisite management skill, okay, to be able to, manage the club through such difficult financial times as we find ourselves in Ghana and in Sub-Saharan Africa.
For those making these allegations against Dr. Ernestine, and I'm sure you've heard numerous of these allegations, let's try to see if we can just play around one or two. The major ones, of course, being that players were top quality players, if you like, were sold. Monies that came in were not properly accounted for, and then sponsors that were coming in. Some were saying that even the figures don't seem to tally. The monies that were coming in, these monies could not be accounted for, and issues concerning cooperation agreements and all. Let's start with, I know these might be your views and might not necessarily be that of the club. Let's look at the issue concerning players, for example. I'm sure that's where your interest will be, obviously, for every football fan and all. Did Doctor get the right players from the club, and did he sell the right players out of the club?
Well, I think, you see, we have to lay this foundation first. Everybody thinks Kotoko is one of the biggest clubs in Africa because once upon a time they were champions. I mean, their peers were the Alalis, the Zamaleks, and all that. Those who
you can't say that anymore.
The Esperance, you can't say that anymore because the fact of the case is that when these people were laying the structures, administrative structures, infrastructure, and others, okay, you go up north there, North Africa, and see even table clubs and see the training facilities over there. When these people were going through that transition, we were sleeping. Okay, it's a fact. We were sleeping in Africa. I mean, in Sub-Saharan Africa and in Ghana here in particular. Okay, and if you don't lay the proper foundation, okay, success will always elude you. You might win one league title, one or two league titles here, but then you will not be able to make that progress and have a sustained success. You need to have the structures in place. You need then to be able to have the enough resources to keep your players. You need to have all those things before you can begin to compare or rub shoulders with the likes of Ali, Zamalek, Esperance, and others. You are not there. So you need to start from somewhere. You understand? And I think that was what Doctor was doing because I saw his 5-year development plan. You understand? It involves having training facilities, including artificial turf, investing in youth systems, the Kotoko Academy and others. So he was trying to lay the foundation. Then after that, you will bring in a top-class coach to manage the facility and the players. Then from there, you are able to attract that kind of sponsorship. You understand? The 10 million, the 15 million, $20 million kind of sponsorship. That will let you...
Not the 50,000 and the 20,000.
No, not the 50,000.
Which can only pay
that will enable you pay your players, some decent salary, decent wages. So your players don't leave Ghana to
Moldova,
DR Congo, or South Africa because you are able to pay competitive wages like Sundowns, like TP Mazembe, like Orlando Pirates, and others, are doing. It is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. Okay, maybe there was problem in communication. Maybe supporters were not, adequately informed about some of the things. But the truth of the matter is that it will get worse before it gets better. From where the position Doctor came from, and as a businessman, you need to sell your assets to get revenue and invest in your company. Where are the assets? Apart from the players, what assets has Kotoko got? So of course,
I'll be asking you that you have been associated with the club for a very long time.
You need to sell some of the players in order to bring in, more players, and then You know, so it is something that he had to do, but it was not going to be something forever. It is for a period of time. You look at those who were in the race to win the immediately, Kotoko and Chelsea. How many players did Chelsea sell? They sold probably
everybody,
almost everybody. But they were the team that had the resources to be able to recruit the best players and still be in contention, just like Kotoko, who sold their best players. So they had enough money to buy. If you don't sell, where are you going to get the money from? Because here in Ghana, the issue of sponsorship and what have you has not marketing of football and sponsorship is not that developed, and corporate bodies are not willing to go beyond a certain threshold. And so it is quite difficult, you know, to really rake in the kind of sponsorship that we need to transform our clubs.
Is it a case of, you know, these fans, with all due respect to them, who have been shouting and making the noise, in quotes, not really understanding some of these policies, and they think that for them everything has gone wrong, especially with the way Doctor handled the transfer of some of these players, for example, because to them, if you look at the players that were sold out, that's the argument, that these were the players who could have, maybe, just maybe, if they had stayed with the team, could have taken the club to maybe the group stages of the Champions League, and who knows, maybe this team could have gone very far. But the players who were recruited in place of these players who were sold were not of a certain quality like the players who were sold. What would you say about that?
Well, you see, the fact of the point is that even if, you know, they had not been sold, they would have left anyway. They would have just been around for a year or maximum a year and a half or two. They would have left. They would have just waited patiently for their contracts to expire, and they'll work. They'll work for free. That is the start.
Do the fans understand this?
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
Someone needs to be communicating it. Was this being communicated?
I'm sure they understand. I'm sure they understand.
Not everybody
Some of these things have been explained over and over again. The doctor himself went around the whole country, he came Accra here, made the Greater Accra Regional Circles, Council, Ashanti, Bronga, Hafo, Central.
So he was in Greater Accra.
Yeah, he was there at the old timers. So he himself, a PowerPoint presentation, and explained every single thing to them. How every single dollar coming for every player has been sold was explained. It is only those who don't want to understand that do understand for
as to whether they are doing it deliberately or otherwise, we wouldn't know.
Yes, we wouldn't know. But what I'm saying is that if the player receives an offer and you refuse to let him go, okay, he will just bid his time. His contract will run out. The bossman ruling is there. He will work for free, and you will get nothing out of it, okay, because you are unable to pay that competitive, you know, salary as what he is going to get, whether it's from Albania or it's from South Africa or it's from DRC, you know. Because I remember Dr. Sapon telling Awal Mohammed that he was not happy about, you know, the kind of salary he was going to receive from Maritzburg, you know, United. And the player said, hell no.
I want to go.
Doctor, please don't let this pass me by. Let me go. You understand? Such is the situation, you know. So it is not like you can afford to hold on to a player for as long as you wish. The world of football
Jerry,
is no longer like that.
In as much as you can't hold on to a player, there are contracts, like you did say.
Exactly.
Contracts could be signed for X number of years, X number of months.
Precisely.
I don't know the exact terms of contracts these players sign with the club. Of course, I wouldn't be privy to that. But if they signed for X number of years and you knew that you had long-term plans, was there any chance Doctor could have tied these players to these long-term contracts rather than maybe a year or two, which would have made it very easy for these players to stay rather than leaving?
Well, I think, you know, now it is very difficult to tie any good player in Ghana to a long-term contract.
They just would not sign.
They just would not sign. It's even very difficult. I mean, if you knew how Kotoko came to sign Rashid Sumala on a loan deal, the negotiation had protracted all throughout the off-season and the pre-season. Ebusia Dwafs will simply not sell. You understand? I've heard people talk about Doctor, you know, signing players on loan and stuff like that. You needed a player of his quality because Awal Mohammed was leaving. Which other player? You understand? You needed a player because you were going to play in Africa. You wanted to retain your league. You understand? You have the money. But the club says, I'm not selling. What can you say? There's nothing you can do. Okay, so it is a much more complex issue than people think. That yes, in the days of 60s and 70s, Kotoko had players who played 10, 15 years for the club. But everything has changed. And the world is changing.
Do they understand this?
And now money now rules the football world. And if you don't understand the business aspect of it, you will be blind in making certain arguments, which might not, be the facts on the ground.
Is it a case of people following the game so emotionally that they don't understand the trend with which football is taking for them to appreciate some of these basics?
Well, I think in the case of Kotoko, it is a traditional club. And it is a club that the supporters
it doesn't change the fact that football is run on business lines these days.
The supporters always want to win. Okay? They always want to win. They want to be the best in Ghana. They want to be the best in Africa. They want the club to be the best, in every competition. Okay? But the fact of the case is that we have not been able to invest in the club for us to sustain that achievement or that success. And so we have to come back to basics. And I think that is what the supporters have to understand, and I'm sure they do.
Well, Jerry Afriyie, the editor of the Kumasi Asante Kotoko Express, is my guest on the show. We're looking at all the issues surrounding Kumasi Asante Kotoko. A lot has been happening in there, and Jerry is gladly in the studio to help us address some of these issues. Jerry, away from the players, then there were issues concerning, funds and so-called funds being diverted and all that. I would not be privy to the day-to-day accounts of the club, but from what I recall at the meeting with the fans here at a place in Adabraka Old Timers Sport, you said earlier that a PowerPoint presentation, and that's going to be a straight PowerPoint. Even if you are not an accountant, you can follow the proceedings and get to understand. He did all that. There are still some people who say funds have made their way elsewhere. What do they know that you and I may not know?
Well, I don't know. But what I know is that...
Now, what I know is what I saw.
What you know is what you saw.
What they know, I don't know.
Yeah, what they know, I also can't tell. But I know that, the Kumasi Asante Kotoko Sporting Club Limited has a very stringent, financial system. Okay? The club is owned by the Dwomoh. The club's accounts, Kotoko Express and everything Kotoko is audited by Asama Bunsu and Partners, an auditing firm that is so close to Manshia, okay, who audits almost everything. The club's accounts, the transfer of money, everything is so streamlined. And even the executive chairman himself does not even sign Kotoko checks. So sometimes
when I heard that, I was a bit surprised.
So it's a bit difficult, if you know how things work in there. When you hear some of the allegations, you know that this is straight, pure lies and fabrication, because he does not even sign Kotoko checks, and so.
Well, they say he does a negotiation, and there's always a chance that in the course of the negotiation, something fishy could happen.
For example.
Well, they've been saying a lot. I'm sure you've heard a lot of them.
Well, I've heard what international cooperation agreement, and the transfer agreement. These are completely two different agreements. Okay, and there is no evidence. No one has showed me an evidence that the international cooperation agreement funds went to the private pockets of somebody. On the contrary, the evidence I've seen is that the transfer fee, international cooperation fee, all these monies came into the Kotoko kitty. So, where lies the argument?
So that, for example, if you listen to the comments being passed by the president of the Ghana Football Association, for example, that we don't have a situation where, clubs on the same continent could have, some kind of agreement, and this would not inure to football being played in the fair spirit. Is he right or wrong?
Well, I have. Well, I don't know. What I would want us to see is to test the law. I would have wished that he would have, taken it through the legal processes for us.
Oh, he's a lawyer.
Yeah, for us to know the veracity of the issue, because there's precedent. There's precedent in Africa. There's precedent in Europe. You understand? I mean, in Europe, Manchester United and Belgian club FC, Royal Antwerp, yes, have cooperation agreements.
Chelsea, Vitesse Arnhem.
Chelsea, Vitesse Arnhem, Arsenal, and several of them. Okay, even there was a time that Manchester United had to pay £1.5 million to show up the accounts of Royal Antwerp. Some people thought it was unethical. They took the matter to court. The court said the agreement, cooperation agreement, and everything that happened was legal.
I recall a couple of years ago when a club like Borussia Dortmund were almost in the red. Yeah. And guess who bailed them out? Bayern Munich.
Yeah. So, I will want us to test the law. Because you remember Jean-Marc Bosman, when he wanted to leave the Belgian club,
right,
FC Bruges, to Dunkirk. And there were disagreements as to his how much his new club should pay, and he decided to take the issue up. That is what resulted in revolutionizing the European transfer, whereby now you have free agents. You understand? He wanted the two clubs to agree on a fee that Dunkirk would pay.
And it took a different twist
altogether. The European Court of Justice ruled that since the contract has expired, he could even walk free. So let's test the law. Let's put it through and find out if it's illegal, because I've heard the FA president say that international cooperation agreements won't fly, in the face of the law. Let's put it to test and find out, because there's international cooperation agreement everywhere. Even CAF and UEFA signed international cooperation agreement. You remember in the early 2000s, where there is this Meridian tournament, and you have this Africa 11 versus European 11.
Exactly.
UEFA under Lennart Johansson and CAF under Issa Hayatou. You understand? Even yesterday, Barcelona says they are coming to invest in Africa to unearth talent. So, to what extent can international cooperation agreements be deemed legal or permissible? Okay, so let's test the law. I mean, I am a student of the law, and I want to know how far you can go with some of these things. So, I mean, I would think that we should dig deeper instead of people just, coming and just making a statement like, hey, this man has embezzled funds, this is illegal, because it hasn't gone through the law. Because if you ask me, I've seen international cooperation agreements that has involved money exchange hands. I have read about several others that people have thought were illegal, unethical, immoral, that have gone to the legal system, and it has been ruled to be okay. So let's see. Let's take this one also through the system. Let's see whether it will stand the rigors of the law.
I'm sure for a lot of football fanatics and football administrators, they would be going through this to find out whether there are ethical or unethical reasons why this should be done or otherwise. Kumasi Asante Kotoko is the focus of our discussion today. We'll be back after this break. Kumasi Asante Kotoko is the focus of our discussion today. In the segment gone by, we're looking at some of the issues that have been raised by fans who were not happy with the way things went. Well, between that time and now, and a lot has happened with respect to the way the club is going to be run and how the club is going to be directed, and that's going to be our focus for this segment of the show. Jerry, in the face of all this, Dr. KK Sapon has decided to, make way for whoever Nana is going to be appointed to be running the affairs of the club. In the last 48 hours, a couple of names have come out. We're hearing a certain lawyer, Paul Edujemfi in Kumasi, and then in 24 hours, Nana surprised all of us by nominating Opokunti. What is the latest? Are we going to be witnessing something different in the next 24 hours?
Well, I think, deep throat sources, my sources tells me, yes, 3 gentlemen did meet Nana on Tuesday.
And who are these 3 wise men?
There was Opokunti, and who was a special assistant.
He was special assistant to Dr. Sapon.
Chairman Dr. KK Sapon, as well as Coach Masood Didi Dramani, and the critical accountant called Charles Opoku.
On what basis would Nana call? I have no reason to question Nana and his decision to call these people, but you are very close to the club. Do you have any idea why these 3 people and not maybe another group of people were called?
Well, I don't know why, these 3 people, but I think it's because of the period. This is the period for player signings and the transfer market is quite busy. If you're unable to get the players you've penciled in at the moment, you could lose out and it could affect your season. So I'm sure being mindful of the vacuum created, maybe Nana wanted the day-to-day running of the club to be in order. That's why maybe this 3 men, because of the accountants, will deal with financial issues, and the coach will deal with the technical issues, and he being the executive, the personal assistant to the executive chairman, he also being a signatory.
Okay.
Okunti is a signatory to the critical accounts. Dr. KK Sapon didn't used to sign. It was Okunti who used to sign the accounts. So in that vein, it is just proper that maybe they take care of the day-to-day management of,
at least for the time being.
Yeah, and so he put in place a 3-member team.
Okay.
And from information I have, Nana did not appoint an interim CEO. The word interim CEO is the creation of the media. Having seen a coach and then an accountant and somebody who was playing an administrative role, people have quickly coined the word interim CEO.
Why would people want to settle on Opoku among the 3? Any particular reasons? A coach cannot be made to run a club?
Yeah, one is a coach, one is an accountant, and one is an administrator.
Okay, so we will fall within the purview of an admin person.
Interim CEO. But from my sources, he put in place a 3, member team to manage the day-to-day activities of the club.
So that, for example, I think on Tuesday or Wednesday, when I heard Jerry Asari on air, former board member, saying that he was speaking on behalf of a new board that was constituted by someone, I don't know who exactly was he speaking for.
No, I think it was the old board that had decided to meet to fill the vacuum created by the absence of or the resignation of Dr. KK Sapon, and as a result of that, appoint somebody who will be who hold the fort before Otumfuo comes out with whatever direction he intends the club to go, and that elected lawyer Edujemfi. But I'm sure that was also going to create some I don't know for what reason, but Maisha decided that these 3 people should be in charge of the day-to-day management of the club, and I have not.
And that was on Tuesday.
Yeah, that was on Tuesday.
Okay, so between Tuesday and now, what has happened?
Between Tuesday and now, what has happened is that I know the coach has said the team will resume camping on the 7th of August. The team is going to resume camping on the 7th of August, and they are going to start with medical examinations and physical conditioning. He has his program in place before leaving for UK last night.
Okay.
The coach left for Manchester City last night, but he has his program in place. He will be away for 10 days. He will come back just around the time the team is going to resume. So what I know is that
in Man City on the club's pairs or the pairs of who?
I think it will be on his private. It's an attachment program.
Okay.
I'm sure the FA might have something to do with that. I don't really know the details, but I know he's going on attachment. To in fact, it should have happened. It should have been a much longer period. But for the CAF license A program that was run at Pram quite recently, and since he was an instructor, he had to, be there. So far as I'm concerned, the day-to-day activity of the club is running smoothly. There's no problem with...
at least in the short term.
Yeah, in the short term. And I also know that Kotoko are signing 6 players and then trying to regularize the stay of Yaya Mohammed. So in total, just 7 players that will join the team.
We'll be doing a bet on players probably in the final leg of the show. But again, Jerry, you have been with the club for over a decade, and you would have witnessed all kinds of individuals being appointed to run the club. As to what went into the appointment of these people, I mean, I'm sure it's not up to us to decide who is good enough and who is not good enough. But history has told us that just a few of them come and stay for maybe more than a year, and they always come in with a lot of pomp, and for reasons that a lot of us don't seem to understand, they are almost hounded out, or they leave in a very bad manner. I'm not too sure how many of them you have worked with in the course of your duty. In the absence of Dr. Keke Sapong, and for the standards with which he has set, what kind of person, even if it's in the short term, do we need to run a club like Kotoko?
I think we need somebody who has deep insight into business and football, and who knows the terrain, the football terrain in Ghana and Africa very well. We need an experienced hand this time around, and I think this time around the supporters will have to exercise a lot of patience, okay? Because what I have realized in Kotoko is that, most of the people who have been hounded out of office and accused of all sorts of things have been based on purely rumors. And if you see the facts, you realize that supporters have most often been misled and misinformed. And supporters have almost always hounded very good people out of office. And if the trend should continue, I hope you read my article, The Press Pass in the Kotoko Express.
No, it's going to come out tomorrow, so definitely we will.
It will get to a point in time we will not be able to get very good people to come and take control of the club, and we will have to keep recycling some of the old people, who've been in and out of the club. Because, people who care a lot about their reputation and their integrity, okay, might not, want to have their reputation damaged or soiled, just because of football. Because some of these people have worked over years, hard-won reputation, and it's very sad, sometimes when I hear some of the comments people were making purely from an ignorant point of view. Purely. Because you could see that they have heard something on radio, and they have also jumped into conclusion. Just let's join the fray. Let's also.
Well, everyone is joining it, so they join.
Yeah. But I think that we have to be sometimes a little bit patient, okay? And I think it has to do with the structure of the club, because when supporters shout, of course the owner will listen. So people think that here, but I think that if the structure can be made in such a way that, not just anybody can just come up and make allegations and succeed in making a coup d'etat and kick to, I think it will really help the club. But for now, it's an all too familiar script that we've seen. It's just like when Herbert Mensah was leaving. It's just like when the Sylvester Asare-Owusu chaired management was leaving. Just like when the Kwame just like when Major Yala, it's the same script over and over and over again.
They've all been accused of diverting funds, embezzlement,
and that. But to date, what evidence do anybody has? On the contrary,
well, the fans say that when they shout and Nana dispenses with these people,
on the contrary,
that is enough for them.
On the contrary, all these people, invested huge sums of their monies in the club. That I don't know whether they've been able.
The funds
whether
don't
they've
seem
been
to
paid.
buy that.
Yes, they don't
They see
seem to buy
Kotoko
that.
as a massive gold mine.
Okay, so if it's a massive gold mine and it starts going down, that is when people start craving for people. That's why when the people come in and they begin to change things every day, then you see people singing their praises. But after things seem to be on a roller coaster, then people forget
how difficult things were.
where we came from. It's all about we having short memory. It's part and parcel of whether it's in the world of politics or it's in the world of football or it's in the world of religion. Everything, it's part of human nature. We have short memory.
Well, you are with the club, and you might have to deal with another team or another set of individuals who are going to be coming in to run the affairs of the club. But looking at an individual like Dr. Sapong, for example, not too many people outside the business world would have known him before his appointment was made. So that if we are looking forward to a new set of individuals, board members, chairman, CEO, what kind of structure would you advice if Nana called you to Menchia to get a word or two from you? Should we have a board? Should we have a functioning CEO? Should he be someone that should be employed and be paid maybe at the end of every month, something like that? Are we not tired of the situation where a billionaire or billionaire businessman is put in there, and of course he being a businessman and running the club, and the next thing we hear is he's chopped the club's money, and then before you know it, he's hounded out?
Well, I think I don't think Nana is short of advisors in any way. I'm sure he has a lot of people.
You never know. He could place that call to you.
Much more competent people who will advise Nana. But I think that there's a problem, with the structures, because if you decide to bring in a board and then appoint a CEO. You remember the clash between the PVOB board, PVOB and Herbert Mensah. Mm-hmm. You understand? Because if you put in a board that is not bringing any money, and the CEO decides to spend his money, now you want to control
his personal money.
Yes, his personal money.
I just wanted to stress on that.
His personal money. Okay? How do you expect him to allow you to control him? Because it is his money he's spending, and how he gets his money, but he thinks it's his business. And if you say you are a board and you are not bringing any money, it is a source of conflict, and it was a major source of conflict between Herbert Mensah and PVR, because Herbert thought that the board were not bringing in they were not bringing in a penny.
Maybe they were not tasked to do so.
And they wanted to control him. They wanted to show him how he should spend his personal money on the club. And it was and so what I've come to realize is that the executive chairman position is perfect. You understand? Because in that case, it eliminates that CEO versus board coalition. Okay? Because we've had it before. Because if there is the head of the board and it's the head of management, then there is no, power struggle anywhere.
So you would advise we go the American way, president, chairman, CEO at the same time?
I think that, the structure that was laid down by Dr. K.K. Sapong should be maintained. The executive board chairman position is perfect, because I know how easily it is for people to easily become so, feel very powerful as soon as you are put in a place. You know how, power can easily...
No, that's individualistic.
People's egos will suddenly, bloat overnight because he thinks that he's now the CEO, and the board chairman will also be there, and even though he is the boss, because this man is the one who is always in the picture, always with the supporters, he could easily become more powerful than and it's always a source of conflict. And I know the club protocol, and I think that the post of executive chairman, okay, is
beyond the board
or an executive management board. That's okay.
Okay, beyond the board and the executive chairman and whatever structures that you've enumerated, I also know that Dr. had key people in certain positions. I'm not too sure whether they were part of the management or they were part of the board. For example, if you look at somebody like Mr. Amponsa Dudu, who is supposed to be head of projects, you look at somebody like maybe Mr. Wilberforce in Fuma. I think he was also there as well. Doctor put certain individuals in charge of key projects of the club. You have any idea what's going to be happening to these people as well?
Well, I know all these people were properly appointed. That's the first line managers. You know, the project manager. Charles Opoku, who is part of the 3-member management team, he is just not, and he was not just an accountant. You know, he is the financial manager.
Okay.
Okay, so all
these people would fall under his purview?
Yeah, all the guys who works at the account department fall under him. Then you have the operations manager, you have the public relations and supporters, you have the marketing, you have so you have all these, managers who were all first-line managers, okay, and they constitute the management. And their positions are supposed to be permanent unless, you decide to fire them, and hire a new person. That's something completely different. So it was a structure that was very well, laid out and oiled and has been working, all this.
Before we go for our final round of commercials, in the interim, we have the 3 wise men, if you would want to call them that. We understand that Nana is going to be holding a meeting in Menchia on Saturday. Who exactly he's going to meet and what exactly they are going to discuss, well, I don't have wind of that, but maybe you do. Any idea what that meeting is going to be about?
Well, I haven't received any official communication that indicates that there's going to be a meeting, today, tomorrow, or over the weekend. It's all, how
these stories come
up, and sometimes you can't just dismiss them, because over the last few weeks or days, some of these things have started as rumors, and eventually we've heard that they are actually true. So, well, we would just hope that if it is true, when Otunfo speaks, it will settle all the hula baloo and uncertainties and whatever, so that, the club can move forward and start, strategizing and preparing for the incoming season, because it promises to be a very, very, very difficult season.
Let's do our final round of commercials. We'll come back and we'll wrap the discussion. Over the years, these experiences that you've had with all these various individuals that you've had to work with, I'm sure you would have learned so much about their management styles and everything. Kotoko is big, whether we like it or not.
Yeah,
what do you think should be the way forward in the face of all this?
Well, I think that, it's about time that we stop being so petty as supporters in the club, and and let us use the systems in place and the regulations, the rules and regulations. We allow them to do the talking. Let's allow the system to work. I think that is what should instead of allegations here, counter allegations and all that. I don't think it's helpful to the club, because if I look at the doctor's case, I mean, I don't think even doctor himself thought before going to Menchia on Thursday anything could happen that could let him tender in a resignation within 24 hours. I'm sure, I'm not sure because he has been planning way ahead of what he was going to do during this off-season, through the pre-season. Everything had been planned. Now we have to, whether we like it or not, okay, due to the events of this last 2 weeks, things will have to backtrack a bit, okay? And I think it will affect the club some way or somehow, depending on who is coming and the kind of solution he's going to bring to the club. So I think that we should be patient with people, okay? And we shouldn't be too quick to hound people out of office. I think that it is, something that has not helped the club in its, road to success and continues to affect the club.
And someone would add that in the face of all these events over the last few weeks, that trip to Sunderland looks like it's off.
That trip to Sunderland, I don't know what the current position is, but I doubt whether it will happen, as originally scheduled, because the tournament was supposed to have started from the 1st of August,
which is today,
which is today, and the team is still here. So I don't think it will be now. Maybe in future it will happen.
What is it about the Kotoko job, CEO, IMC, whatever it is? From where I sit, and from what I do as a sports journalist, and from what I have witnessed all over the years, I noticed that the lobbying can become so intense that even when the day someone is named, the next day people start lobbying for the same job.
Exactly.
What is it about this job that people just don't seem to have the patience for someone who has been named to do a job for whatever period? Just give that person some breathing space to work, so that if somebody is employed to do their job today, you don't start lobbying for the job the next day.
Yeah, I will entreat you to read my piece in tomorrow's edition of the Kotoko Express.
Well, as if I knew that was what you were going to write about.
It is astonishing, actually, to know that there's actually a very long queue of people waiting to occupy that position. I never knew.
Well, now you know.
Yes, the scheming is actually scary, and it's so strange. And I look at it and I say, yeah, there lies Kotoko's problems. I was having this conversation with somebody the other time, and the person was saying, and it was all about this same scheming and people wanting to be in the hot seat. And somebody was saying maybe Menchia should adopt the FIFA style of appointing host countries for the World Cup. Maybe from 2013 to 2016, this man will be there. From 2016 to 2022, this man will be there, so that people will know when their time is actually due. Because it's something that I think is a major contributing factor to why the club cannot have a stable and sustained management and sustained structures and sustained success and sustained everything. Because every now and then people are looking forward to bringing whoever is at the helm of affairs down, and they ascending. And whilst they are there, people are also looking at bringing them down. So it's concentric circles, as my friend Kojo Adai would say. Kotoko running in concentric circles, and that is what I've witnessed over the last 10 years that I've been working at the Kotoko Express.
It doesn't look like it's going to stop.
Well, I hope that this will be the end, or this is the beginning of the end, and this time around maybe we'll be able to find a solution to it, and it will not have to come back again. It's like taking 2 steps forward and taking 3 steps backwards, okay? And you cannot make progress in that way. It doesn't happen that way. And football has changed, and it continues to change. Actually, football it has not only changed, it is still changing. And if you don't catch up with the times, you will be lost.
Are we catching up with the times?
You can only dream of being among the greatest. You can only dream. If you don't, put in place the right, structures to be able to, rub shoulders with the big boys, you can only dream.
Are we catching up with them?
I mean, I'm
sure. We are just where we are. We just live in our own comfortable zone.
I'm sure we are getting ready to make that journey.
And when would we be fully ready? Because we are getting ready. We are not ready.
Yeah, I think we are getting there. We are getting there, but just that the pace is too slow. Maybe we will need to quicken up a bit. I am happy about this club licensing and other things that the FA is doing. The FA trying to put in place a lot of things. I still have a lot of issues though with how the league is run, television rights and other. I have major issues, with how, but with putting in place the structures, I think the FA has brought a framework, and they will be able to, God willing, they will be able to get the clubs to comply, and that will be, a good point to start into the world of professionalism and professional football. Jerry,
any final words you want to share with us before you go?
Well, I will entreat Kotoko supporters to remain calm. I'm sure Tunfa has taken everything into contest, and he does every time that he has had to step in and lead the way or show the way. He has done it with finesse, and I'm sure that this time around he will make sure that he will give the proper direction to the club, and the club will continue from there.
Jerry, thank you so much for your time, and for you, Kwame, the Kumasi Asante Kotoko fan out there, well, you heard the editor of the Asante Kotoko Express. It's about time that the right people are made to run the affairs of the club. And for those lobbyists out there who start lobbying for the job the moment an appointment is made, if Kotoko really wants to go for it, there's nothing wrong with lobbying for a position, but lobbying and doing it right and, waiting for your time, I think might just serve the interest of the club. Let's wait and see what Nana is going to be doing in the next 24, 48, 72 hours with regards to the direction of the club. And hopefully the new person who would come on board would steer Kotoko to the levels that the club would want to be. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.